What's up, everybody?
My name is Anthony Irvin.
You beat yourself?
Yeah, CB myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Jim Green.
Don't even need a hit of traffic light.
Okay, good.
Welcome to
One Set. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the One Set Pod. My name is Jim Green. I am flying solo today. My buddy Anthony could not make it today, unfortunately. But wow, we have so much to uncover. And yes, this is very much based on last week. Anthony and I are super grateful for all the response and everybody who has provided us feedback on the Uncle Howdy debut in WWE last week on Monday Night Raw. And I gotta tell you, I saw the debut and I thought visually it looked cool. But I was also very like, okay, this is just them in their costumes and it looks really cool. But why? And we got a lot of those answers this past week on Raw. And for everyone that tuned in to our last episode, our highest viewed episode that we've ever had in almost 2.5 years now, we thank you. We thank you immensely. We just put out a little short about the debut and our live reaction to it, which sought a ton of praise. And again, we thank everybody immensely. We really do. It means the world to us. So this episode today, obviously have to cover what we saw this past Monday on Raw. Yeah, really. There's just so much running through my head about like where they take this, but also it's a reminder of like, hey, maybe I should just enjoy the ride a little bit rather than trying to analyze where I think they're going. And rather than overanalyzing and predicting everything that's about to happen, just let be what is about to be and then take it from there, right? So let's get into the breakdown of the package that was left for Pat McAfee at the commentator table. And honestly, nobody knew why Pat wasn't there in that time, which I love the respect for him. I caught up as to why once I watched the Pat McAfee show and the podcast the next day. So when people are like, oh, his, father-in-law passed away and they're doing this bit on WWE, the timing was like they had everything mapped out for Raw. And then Pat got the news and then he was out. And that's why we got the Miz early on in the show. And then Michael Cole does the entire show after that solo. So if we want to talk about who the MVP is on commentary, it's Michael Cole. Let us know in the comments if you want to say, oh, I'm waiting for someone to insert, like, this person's way better. I'm talking right now, as far as commentating for sports entertainment purposes, right? Michael Cole knows the industry enough to know where it was, where it's been in the present, and where it's going, that he is very much now about then, now, forever together. He understands the culture of WWE. And I'm not going to dog on AEW. I know that they're new. I know that they're trying to formulate their own situation. I'm not out here to be that guy to be like, nope. Mm-mm. I commend them for providing competition, because it is, in my opinion, making WWE better, making Triple H be like, hey, how do we stay one step ahead of the game? And he's doing it. Okay. So let's get into this Uncle Howdy stuff. Because I thought their debut last Monday night on Raw was cool. And Anthony and I talked about it at length, about the presentation, the production end of it. And it was left with, what do we care about other than, is Chad Gable dead? Which we know he's not. This past Monday night's Raw brought us the most intriguing segment that I've seen, that I have watched a dozen times over, and I know Anthony has too. Bo Dallas, Bray Wyatt's brother Taylor, is doing this damn thing. Okay. Bo Dallas is literally harnessing everything about this. And I thought that they might try to navigate around it being too sensitive for him to coordinate his moves to make the follow-up situation make sense. My mouth opened, my jaw dropped. I was sitting there watching it like, once Michael Cole handed off the tape that, Sister Abigail, Nikki Cross, Nikki ASH, whatever you want to call her, presented, and the tape was for Pat, and we know the tape was presented for Pat so that, because Pat is the one that is networked into the mainstream media, especially through his podcast, the Pat McAfee Show. If you haven't watched it, you should. It is a sports podcast, so if you're not into sports, you might like it because of the way that they talk about it, because of their personalities. Highly recommended for someone like me that hasn't been super involved in sports and has been a hardcore wrestling fan the past 25 years. I pay attention to the Pat McAfee Show. Okay. So for Pat on air to talk about how his father-in-law passed away, our condolences from the One Set Pod to Pat and his family. And really, I think that if Vince was in control, he would have just thrown anyone and everyone in there and been like, okay, well, someone's got to fill in for Pat, so Cole's not alone. Instead, they had The Miz fill in for the first hour or almost, and then Michael Cole ran Monday Night Raw on commentary alone. props due where props are due, man. Michael Cole owned commentary alone for at least an hour and a half, if not 2 hours. But he would have only done that under one, the trust of Triple H, and number two, knowing he was covering for Pat in a time where Pat was needed, and Triple H probably gave him the leeway to say, hey, you're a one-man show and we trust you. Are you comfortable with it? And Michael Cole almost immediately said, yeah, I've been doing this long enough. Of course I can. Rather than if it was Vince in charge, Vince would have just thrown anybody in there just for the sake of having a second guy next to Michael Cole. And then the commentary would have been not super great.
When you're talking about hydration is not only for people training for championships and marathons. We're talking about daily maintenance people. Jim, did you know that 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated?
I believe it, Anth. I mean, honestly, in my line of work, dealing with teaching children and also dancing with adults my age, younger and older, I can almost tell based off of how well people not just perform athletically, but how we carry ourselves and how we communicate back and forth, our facial gestures and just our energy alone. I can tell when somebody's sluggish and they're sleep deprived versus they're just sluggish because they're a dried up sponge because they are dehydrated, right?
Absolutely. And for people like me who are working the 9 to 5 and, for me gigging at night, proper hydration is definitely crucial to maintain function throughout the day and keeping yourself energized. And that's why proper functional hydration is essential. And who's going to give it to you? Liquid IV, because Liquid IV is the number one powered hydration brand in America. Their hydration multiplier is the one product you're missing in your daily routine. I like to use it first thing in the morning. I've been doing a lot of workouts here and there, so I pop it in my water bottle first thing in the morning. Gives me a little boost of energy of what I need. And sometimes during the day when I'm doing that like 2 o'clock rundown, I'll pop a little one. If not in the morning, it gives me a little bit of that energy that I need. With just one stick, you can hydrate real life 2 times faster than water alone, plus get essential vitamins and 3 times the electrolytes as the leading sports drink. And not only that, Liquid IV comes in 12 delicious, refreshing flavors to keep your hydration routine exciting.
Yeah, Anth. I mean, for me personally, like my day to day, I'll wake up and pop a Liquid IV just to get my day started and start off with proper hydration. And then I am like required to be physically active between the hours of like 2 or 3 p.m. until 9, 10, 11, sometimes midnight if I'm doing a backup gig. So I'll do another one maybe around noon, 1 p.m., and that'll keep me going throughout the day. And I just feel so much better. I don't even drink coffee on the regular like that because I don't need to pick me up unless if I'm like really just not sleeping much. And then I'm like, all right, get me that. I don't like to rely on caffeine unless I absolutely feel like I need it. Liquid IV does the trick for me. I don't know about you.
Again, one stick with Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficient than water alone. It contains 5 essential vitamins with 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drinks, and it's made with quality ingredients, non-GMO, and free of gluten, dairy, and soy.
Liquid IV believes that equitable access to clean and abundant water is the foundation of a healthier world. They partner with leading organizations to fund and foster innovative solutions that help communities protect both their water and their futures. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in 50 plus countries around the world.
Yeah, man. Real people, real flavor, real hydrating. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use our code 1SETPOD. That's 1SETPOD and at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code OneSetPod at liquidiv.com.
Part of me is very big on, I'm so accustomed to the commentary as I'm viewing the match on TV. And this is where Triple H had recently said, we're not building wrestling matches, we're building a TV series, we're building movies. And the movies that you see are the premium live events. The wrestling that you see in the ring is just a small portion of the overall product, right? There has to be a reason why we care. Storylines are important. So the acting is super important. So when we see these main roster wrestlers, superstars, move on to Hollywood, it's because WWE is providing them a platform to get to that point, okay? And I think if not for Bray Wyatt's early unexpected passing, he would have gotten there. He would have absolutely been there. Anyone thinking that Bo Dallas was going to take this everywhere beyond what Bray Wyatt had in his mind, I would instantly disagree with them.
Have you ever wanted to start your podcast but didn't know where to start? The One Set Bros are here to talk to you about Zencastr. Zencastr is the ultimate-based podcasting solution and now the all-in-one podcasting platform, making podcasting easy. They've sure made it easy for us to be able to record our podcast and our episodes every week for you guys. Once you've set up your account, you're simply one click away from recording a high-quality podcast with studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. My personal favorite feature is their multi-layer backups, which ensure our recordings are always in the highest quality, even during unstable web connections. And if you thought you needed multiple tools and services for your podcast, Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform allows you to create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code OneSetPod, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experience as we do with all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
So let's get into a little bit of the context for the video that we got after they sent it back to production and Michael Cole was like, let's see what this is all about. I certainly thought it had something to do with Pat McAfee because his family, his friends, they were all there. They were in his hometown. I definitely thought that it was leading up to this. And maybe they had something in preparation for that. Because this feels very interesting that we get this Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy back and forth in the Firefly Funhouse, by the way, which we catch at the end of the segment because they zoom in on the background so that we know, hey, this is definitely happening in the Firefly Funhouse. Uncle Howdy says, have you since been felt forgotten? His voice is overdubbed, and I'm like, okay, are they trying to make Uncle Howdy feel different than when they first presented him? And then we get Bo Dallas talking himself as himself. Wyndham's brother, Taylor. And they're blurring the lines of reality with this, which is why this so much works with everybody that I've talked to about this whole thing. It's been, okay, is very raw emotion, and I have to agree because I sat there and watched it, and at first I was like, okay, and then you know Uncle Howdy said to to Bo, yeah, I'm gonna mix them up because it all feels a little bit in the same family. um, how did you feel when your brother died? And I just sat there and was like, they're doing this. But then once everything unraveled after the fact, I was like, okay, so Uncle Howdy is essentially Bo Dallas's fiend to Bray Wyatt, like alter ego. Someone is talking to him in his head about what he's thinking and feeling and the things that he doesn't want to say. And he's asking the questions that Bo Dallas Taylor doesn't want to hear and doesn't want to answer. That's what's making the whole segment uncomfortable because it's teetering on reality, right? I have watched this segment back at least a dozen times now. And I think it's also a testament to it's not something that we needed to see in the ring, something that we needed to see that happen in a match that was an oh my god WTF moment. And this is why WWE is so good about cinema. I mean, if anyone wants to tell me AEW is better about cinema, and I'm not even knocking on AEW, I'm not. I think that they present great matches in the ring because there are fans out there that want to just see great wrestling matches. Guess what? You're going to get good wrestling matches there. You're going to get some not so great wrestling matches there. WWE has plenty of them. But WWE also, like Triple H had said, we're building cinema. We're building movies, which are the PLEs, the premium live events. WrestleMania is the finale of every season. But I think that what really irks me as a fan for the last 30 years is they went so many years, Vince went so many years where they were like, hey, let's do this storyline. Let's do this thing behind the scenes. And I think that he got comfortable when he had really big, strong guys and was like, I can build marquee matches. Like, if anyone sees these two people on a billboard, Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, I know people would hate me for saying that, but who doesn't want to see that match? People that don't like either or both, right? So who doesn't want to see Roman Reigns and The Rock against Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes? Tons of people will want to see that match, especially when we thought we were getting The Rock and Roman Reigns one-on-one, right? They're building this storyline, which I have outwardly spoken I don't care about right now. And not because I think it's terrible and they need to get rid of it. It's just they're downplaying it right now, right? Because they have a much larger plan going into the fall, going into WrestleMania season for WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. And I'm excited for it to get there. I really am. But just to tie in the whole storytelling situation, we have had 8 to 10 weeks, if not more, of these QR codes on Raw and SmackDown, and everybody knew it was Uncle Howdy. Everybody knew Uncle Howdy was coming. To the point where everyone was like, this is very much what Bray did, so it's obviously him. To the point where we were all just like, we're over it. Like, get to the point. And that's the beauty of it, is they sold us to the point where we didn't care. Almost didn't care. We were just like, all right, this might just be a huge flop if you're dragging this out so long. Okay. Then we get the debut. We get Chad Gable beaten up. We know he's not dead, right? So I'm going into Raw this past Monday thinking, okay, they're just going to follow up on that. So we get Nikki Cross in the ring after Chad qualifies for the Money in the Bank briefcase ladder match. And then she presents the package to Michael Cole. That's for Pat. Says, play me. When they play the video, I never expected to see anywhere near what we got. And we got nothing wrestling related. Okay. What we did get, Bo Dallas did the damn thing, which is what I texted Anthony immediately. I have a couple other friends that follow along and are very heavily invested in the storyline. I said, Bo Dallas has done the damn thing. Okay. Clearly, he was himself in the interview, and he was playing the role of Uncle Howdy that was doing the interview. When Uncle Howdy says, don't you think you're exploiting your brother's legacy? That was when I knew, okay, they're really taking this there because they're avoiding going any other direction. Because if they try to take this in some other right, left field, out of the ballpark situation, I think the fans would shit on it. And I think I would have too. Specifically because I would have felt like they were just trying. But instead, they understood the assignment. They knew what everyone was going to think of the situation. And they said, okay, how do we answer this accordingly? How do we make this make sense? And not just for Bo Dallas's purpose, not just for Uncle Howdy, but because everything that they're doing with this, they're going to make sure they're not doing Bray Wyatt dirty because of how much he did for the company, how much he did. I mean, Anthony and I have talked about this at length about the pandemic match that Bray Wyatt had with John Cena at WrestleMania 36 and how it worked because Bray Wyatt was so far ahead of the curve that he said, we need to do cinema-based content, promotional building, because it's the stuff that happens in the ring. yes, it looks good on TV and it does fit the people that are there in attendance. But Bray Wyatt knew it was a larger scale situation, a larger situation that you can't just make the fans that are wrestling like fans about what we do happy. And Anthony and I talked about how Bray maybe wasn't the best in-ring technician athletically, but he knew how to navigate everything else around it to make it feel important, to sell the product, to do what was best for the company. Okay. Bo Dallas is doing this thing. Are we going to get the other members of the Wyatt Six doing this same like interview segment where Nikki Cross is interviewing herself as Sister Abigail in these moments? I think that's where a lot of us feel like it's going. But if I had to say one perspective as to where, like, from someone that watches shows where storytelling is important, Game of Thrones, Anthony and I have talked about. Obviously, we've talked at length about the ending, everything that they did on the books that they felt was most important. Everything they're doing with House of the Dragon right now, they aren't making the action scenes feel important. They're making the dialogue, the character development, everything that moves around that feel so important that we're putting our phones down as we're watching these things, which is rare nowadays. House of the Dragon season 2, there are so many good things happening, and there's only 2 episodes as of right now on this release. They are investing so much in how they tell the story to make the action moments feel even more important. That's what Triple H is doing. That's what Triple H is doing with the story that is revolving around Uncle Howdy, the Bray Wyatt legacy. Anthony and I did talk about on the last episode about how long we feel that this whole faction can last. From what I read, and everybody takes for a grain of salt what we see on the internet, if they present this throughout the show to be as important, if not more important, than what they've done with the Judgment Day. And when I say what they've done with the Judgment Day, I mean what Triple H has done to make the Judgment Day feel important throughout the whole show. I think he's going to wind up doing with the Wyatt Six. Okay. And I really feel like he's building room for that by creating dissension in the Judgment Day, because Damian Priest is telling Seth Rollins that the Judgment Day needs Damian Priest more than Damian Priest needs the Judgment Day. So that happening is almost like, okay, they're going to split the Judgment Day up, or they're just making the fans feel like, oh, Judgment Day is going to wrap up soon, especially once they bring Rhea Ripley back, then they're all just going to disperse in their own ways. I actually feel like Triple H, having invested as much time as he did in the Judgment Day, is creating competition. He's creating competition in order to say, if he has to meet with Damian Priest and Bray Wyatt Bro Wyatt, Bro Dallas, backstage, morning of the show, leaning forward as he's building creative. He's getting their feedback. Why should I pit more of the program on your faction than your faction? What's the moneymaker? Where is the merchandise selling? I'll tell you what. Damian Priest in the ring with Seth Rollins this past Monday night on Raw. Super awkward. I really felt like Damian Priest stood there like he was trying to hold his own, and at the same time knew, yeah, this might be just a one-off for me, and then they're going to go some other direction. I really didn't feel the confidence from Damian Priest this past Monday night against Seth Rollins. And I feel like also Seth Rollins has had so many opportunities to be that guy 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that Seth Rollins isn't worried. Seth Rollins is very okay with doing the job, especially if he knows his work is going to a good cause. So I'm very 50-50 about their matchup, Seth Rollins and Damian Priest at Money in the Bank. I don't know also where it goes from there. I know everyone's talking about the Bloodline. Roman Reigns is coming back, and what we're doing with that. We're supposed to not care about that as much right now because it will become more important 3, 6, 9 months from now. We're supposed to become more invested in the other things that are being presented to us on Raw. Judgment Day. Rhea Ripley going out. Liv Morgan stepping in. Liv Morgan is doing wonders, in my opinion, for the Raw Women's Championship, which is the women's world heavyweight title, because SmackDown is the WWE Women's title, which Bayley still holds. Okay. There's a reason why they put Nia Jax as Queen of the Ring. She's on SmackDown. The women's division on SmackDown, there are contenders to be good wrestlers in the ring. The storyline is Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. So again, we go back to this whole cinematic situation where what makes sense over time, what draws the audience. I remember reading something 5 years ago where WWE had hired someone from the Marvel writing team so that they could help understand long-term story building. It makes sense. It makes sense. I feel like in Vince's last 5 years specifically, 10 to 15 years, you could say, yeah, he still kind of knew what he was doing. Okay. But I also feel like he got to a point where he did whatever he wanted. He just said, everyone's going to listen to me because I'm the kingpin and I am the one to be trusted. And if you don't like it, take it somewhere else. And this is where Triple H stepping in is the best transition ever because he understands where Vince was in his best. He knew where Vince was at his worst, and he's making the best of all of it. Right? Back to the Uncle Howdy situation. You know, I think when Uncle Howdy asked, how did you feel when your brother died? Was what really shook me. And then when he said the thing about exploiting Bray's legacy was just like, okay, that wasn't there just to be by itself. It was there to just reinforce, yeah, hey, we're going this deep into it. Bo Dallas absolutely killed it. Everyone's saying that's Bo Dallas's best promo ever. Yes, it was pre-recorded. It was not in the ring. It wasn't a live of like a full-blown live audience. But we have a reason to believe, rather than they just debuted the Wyatt Six last week and it's, oh, these guys are going to be menaces across Raw. Let's just bring these Halloween characters in week to week and they're disturbing different parts of the show. No, they are making why they're there feel important. I'm glad that they debuted them and now they're actually trickling back to why do we care about these people on the show? Especially Joe Gacy, Dexter Lumis, these guys that just came up from NXT that are going to be Huskus, that are going to be Mercy the Buzzard. Why do we care about you? So then people are contemplating, okay, are they doing the split personality thing with every member of the Wyatt Six and their counter personalities? Wouldn't hate it, especially if you want it to make sense with multiple platforms across the way. I will say Indy Hartwell, who we had Index, Indy Hartwell and Dexter Lumis were like the Index, like romantic scene in NXT. They tried to bring it to the main roster and they didn't find room for it. But now Indy Hartwell is tweeting that she wants no parts with Dexter Lumis now that he's part of the Wyatt Six. So guess what? Spoiler alert. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're getting Dexter Lumis and Mercy the Buzzard in with Indy and with Candice LeRae, potentially DIY. If they filter this faction in throughout in that way to make it feel that important, like they did with DX, like they did with the corporation, like they did with the ministry, like they did with the corporate ministry once they merged, to make it feel like some faction was overtaking the show, which we saw Liv Morgan 5 times in 5 separate segments on Monday Night Raw this last week. Okay. If they can make the Wyatt Six feel that important across the entire show, just in blips here and there, not we need 45 minutes of just them and then they go away and we go into something else. And I think that that's what Anthony and I had talked about previously as to why the show feels more important, because they're taking things throughout the show. They're navigating the important things that they want to promote throughout the show. I mean, the Bloodline, obviously, on SmackDown, they have made it feel like, hey, it's what people need to see at the start of the show, and we need to see it every 30 minutes. At least if it's backstage in the locker room at the end of the show, that makes people feel like, okay, I should care about this. I think they're going to take it that way, but I think it's going to take a lot of time to get us there because they slow burned introducing the Wyatt Six, and then now we just got Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy. And I wouldn't hate if they had the first couple characters introduced trickle into the show and then do these interviews with the real life superstars, alter egos being introduced along the way. So it's not like we get all 5 or 6 of them introduced in the next 5 to 6 weeks. And all of a sudden we have to feel like they're all important at the same time. I feel like we're going to get Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy out in the ring with people. It was curious that we got Sister Abigail in the ring. At the same time, though, Bray Wyatt also always held Sister Abigail as like the one that spoke to him as the voice of reason. So I almost wonder if we get all of those interviews similar to what we got with Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy with the rest, but we never get anything from. We never get a Nikki Cross Sister Abigail thing. Like maybe she is just Sister Abigail. First time thinking this right now. And I wouldn't hate that if she was just like, yeah, no, I'm Sister Abigail. And then maybe down the road, it's like Bo Dallas is trying to free himself from living in the headspace of I have to exploit my brother's legacy, and maybe he wants to go out there and be on his own. And then we get Sister Abigail holding him into all of what they're doing now, everything that lives within the Bray Wyatt world. That would be cool. That would be interesting. And how they, I don't know, if Bo Dallas ever becomes anything beyond the Wyatt Six, beyond Uncle Howdy. And I don't think he cares if he does or doesn't. I think he's like, probably really go with like, okay, I have to fulfill my brother's legacy and I have to make something of my own. I think the real challenge is going to be how does he stand alone on his own? And maybe it takes making the story make sense to break him out of it. And you heard it here first. Thursday, June 27th, 2024. If they can find a way to get Bo Dallas to be over independent of the Wyatt Six, of Bray Wyatt, and make him feel important and him be over alone, I feel like that would conclude the story entirely, and then everything else could fall apart and nobody would care because everyone would say, okay, Bo Dallas, yes, he did piggyback off of Bray's situation, but anyone that followed along and paid attention knows that Bo Dallas was Uncle Howdy while Bray Wyatt was alive. Like that all was about to be a thing. So if we can get Bo Dallas circling into the Wyatt Six and then somehow freeing himself from that, from his brother's legacy, because Uncle Howdy is asking him, do you feel like you're exploiting your brother's legacy? If we can get Bo Dallas so over to the point where he is a Daniel Bryan in the next 5 years and he is fighting against the Wyatt Six, everything that Bray Wyatt stood for, Bo Dallas puts all of that to rest and then is on his own. That would complete the story for me. Not Bo Dallas just lives on to carry on Bray's dream. But if they can write this, if Paul, Triple H, Levesque can write this in a way where Bo Dallas got circled into the Wyatt Six and then moved his way out of it and got over on, you can say on his own. Obviously, he would have had the help with all of this storyline to go along the way. It's what Bray Wyatt would have wanted. Wyndham would have wanted this for Taylor. That's finishing the story more for me than Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And that's just me in my investment with wrestling in general, my personal preferences. I wasn't super behind Cody Rhodes, like, oh yeah, he's the end all be all. He has to end Roman's title reign. I was very open to someone else doing it. Okay. The whole payoff to this Wyatt Six faction. Okay. If you wanted to introduce the Fiend and The Fiend being Bray Wyatt's one of his multiple personalities. If you want to introduce the Wyatt Six, and they took over Gorilla, and again, we're super thankful for everybody that tuned into our live reaction to that. The absolute poetic, perfect way to write this out is Uncle Howdy asked Bo Dallas, do you feel like you're exploiting your brother's legacy? How did you feel about your brother dying? For Bo Dallas to come out on top of this in a couple years, maybe 5, to be the most over person in the company, and this is far reaching right now, I get it, that will pay off the long-term storytelling. It will literally provide reason for, yes, these wrestling matches that you see on TV or premium live event are there to just build action. It's why action movies are action movies. You get way more action. It's why dramas are way more drama movies. You get more storytelling and drama and twists and turns. This is why WWE is trying to combine both of those things. It's because they know they have the best athletes in the world right now to do the in-ring stuff. The in-ring content is a fast sell for anyone walking past the TV. For anyone, it's a fast sell for anyone watching on social media. That's like, oh, in 15 seconds, why am I paying attention to this? The storytelling is involved with those who maybe read books. Or my oldest sister, who is upstairs right now, avid reader. My mother also. They love great storytelling, but it has to be presented in a way that keeps you reading the book. It keeps you tuning in every week to Raw, to SmackDown. House of the Dragon Season 2 is the one visual representation of epic storytelling. Obviously, Game of Thrones had done it, but the fact that they were able to spin off of that and say, okay, we're only presenting the big action where we feel like, okay, we got to drop this here. We got to drop this here. They're not building the show around the battle scenes. They're building the show around the compelling storytelling, which is what is happening right now. And what makes me so happy to be a WWE fan, a fan of professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. I have respect for AEW. I have respect for TNA, New Japan Pro Wrestling. All of the indie wrestlers out there, they are pushing themselves to their limit to be as athletic as they are, like the luchadors, Rey Mysterio. And there are people out there like Bray Wyatt, where it's like, I know I'm not super solid in the ring, but I can tell a story. Obviously, the people that can do both are either the legends that we've known to see, or the people that we've known to see who are so great on one end of the spectrum that the other end of the spectrum is like, okay, as long as they have a little bit of that, but they're off the radar on the other thing, right? Brock Lesnar, obviously not great on the mic, not great storyteller, but an attraction. And that's just the easiest thing for me, like the easiest example for me to use in this moment, right? If you are a wrestling fan, no matter the promotion, and you haven't seen the Uncle Howdy Bo Dallas promo from I mean, it's on WWE's Instagram. I have watched it back a dozen times at least, and I gotta say, I'm not watching it because I'm seeing a lot of action. I'm watching it for the production, the way that they produce the film, but also Bo Dallas is doing this thing. His brother died last August, and between then and now, okay, 10 months later, he's gotten good with accepting it and zeroing in, honing in on how to make this work for him. And if you watch the documentary on Bray Wyatt, Triple H is so far invested in this to make this make sense, because I think that he knows we can either make this super great, obviously drawing numbers, making money is an important part of the business, but his acknowledgement of what Bray Wyatt brought to the table to understand this isn't just about wrestling. And what Bray Wyatt brought to the company was everything surrounding whatever happens in the ring is what Bray Wyatt was outstanding about. And I think we're going to get a lot of really great stuff coming from the Wyatt Six. Again, thank you so much to everyone who has reached out to us and commented and responded to our live reaction of the debut of the Wyatt Six. It was something that Anthony and I were both extremely looking forward to. I know Cheyenne and I were thrilled to see it, but I'll tell you, Cheyenne and I watched the debut of the Wyatt Six at the end of Raw, not this past Monday, but the Monday before. But what Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy did in that segment took me from like I'm right there with it, but I'll see where this goes, to okay, I'm all in. No pun intended. I'm all in. I'm all invested. They're gonna make this right. This is gonna be so good, and I don't care if it lasts only for a year, as long as it's a really good year. My hard take would be Bo Dallas finds his way out of the Wyatt Six and builds his own legacy outside of it. So if the Wyatt Six goes 2 to 3 years and then we see him finding separation away from it because he's come to terms with his brother dying, because he's found peace at it, and because he knows his brother would want him to build his own legacy outside of Bray's legacy. If Bo Dallas gets to an important place in the company in the next 3 to 5 years, if they put him in a title, I'm not saying put Bo Dallas in the title match at WrestleMania 45, but if he builds himself to the point where he's that important, where he has zeroed in and can get to that point, it would really take me to another level as a wrestling fan and like of the WWE. Not like, oh, you just gave Bo Dallas this consolation prize because his brother died. Like, if Bo Dallas can make this important enough to make us feel invested enough to the point where he breaks away from the Wyatt Six, and maybe the Wyatt Six diminishes off and it's like it deteriorates in separate areas. It's important in other aspects of the show. Just like Roman Reigns returning, he's not coming back to jump straight after Cody Rhodes. He's coming back straight to the Bloodline. Like, they're going to build this story around everything making sense because they understand compelling television and ratings and how important it is. And they're putting forth their best effort to get us there. This is why I pay attention. This is why Anthony and I pay attention. This is why he and I text every day about this stuff, whether it's for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour. If it's a good day, an hour and a half, couple hours. If it's late at night and we're both awake and we're like, this is crazy. Like, this is what keeps your engagement. And it can transcend onto many, many other things, which we will get into in another episode, right? On that, I'm going to sign off. I had a lot of other notes. Sika, Roman Reigns' father, passed away this past week. Rest in peace. The Bloodline is obviously a very important part of the story right now. Roman Reigns' dad passing away, him being, Sika faced Dusty Rhodes back in the 80s. The whole Noah family is a pivotal part of the wrestling industry within WWE specifically. So, giant loss. My thoughts and Anthony's thoughts go out to their family, as they've been, again, pivotal part of the WWE industry. I will catch up on Money in the Bank predictions and things of that nature next week. All I know is we're getting Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre versus Ilya Dragunov in a triple threat match on Monday. That in itself, again, just a wrestling match that feels important. That makes me want to tune into the show. Okay. It's going to be a slobber knocker. Everything they're doing with Liv Morgan, Judgment Day, all of that stuff feels important. I just do feel what they've done to make the entrance into the Money in the Bank ladder matches, there's storylines building around them that make us feel like, okay, well, this person could lose because interference on this end. And that's what makes it unpredictable and makes me want to watch the show. They're killing it. I'm just gonna say it. They're killing it right now. In a time where people are on summer vacations, why should we feel like we're invested in it? Why is it important? When the NFL comes up in the fall, what we've heard in a lot of the years leading up to this podcast starting was, oh, well, they don't care in the fall because football takes over. They're finding ways around it. Everything is going super good. Thank you, everybody that has tuned into this and has listened through on this episode with me flying solo without Anthony. My name is Jim Green. Follow us on our socials at the number 1 set pod. If there's anything you'd like to reach out to us about, if you want us to dive into certain topics, if you just want us to answer a little Q&A, the number 1 set pod at gmail.com. Like I said, follow us on our socials, patreon.com/1 set pod if you want exclusive content. Obviously, there are things that I love to talk about that I can't answer on a public format that I do get into on that. That being said, all the love to you, and until the next one.